Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here with my co-host Anthony Marquetta. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Anthony, there's been a plague recently. Twitter has been pretty boring.
What?
I know, I know. This is the everything app or whatever, and it's got video on it, and it's got people on it, and even funny people sometimes, and it just hasn't been giving me the joy it used to. And I think it's directly because they keep banning all the funnest accounts, the most racist accounts also. But there's only 90% overlap between those.
Yes.
Um, no, it's been like we've seen friends just not give any new opinions. The same old opinion they gave in 2016 or something. We got people who've already transgressed every social norm there is. We've got um, people circling the drain on different opinions. The only thing slightly refreshing was the furor over the Pope being, and this is going to shock, but the liberal Pope was liberal. Um, Perhaps not as liberal as Pope Francis was, but he's from Chicago. I don't know what people wanted, uh, but I know
All
what I
right. So
wanted.
we're doing if we're gonna do a general variety stream. I got my thoughts about, or we'll call it a Twitter stream, right?
Yes,
I got some thoughts.
you
Uh,
got some thoughts.
yes. So first off, I've mentioned this before on Twitter itself. I actually have quite enjoyed using Twitter. If I ever go into the corporate world, I'm gonna have to delete everything. And I
And
understand this.
some
I'm
of our
just enjoying.
streams.
What was that? No,
And
nobody
some
will
of our
listen.
streams.
Yeah, nobody will listen to these streams. Uh, anyway, but I will probably need to delete my Twitter profile, so I'm just enjoying the ride while it lasts. Uh, Having fun with it. I actually have quite enjoyed my time on Twitter. There are other people like, oh, like you get obsessed with. It's like, no, nothing on Twitter really bothers me for any particular length of time. The reason I'm on a lot is because it takes extremely little time and energy investment, and I am amused by some of what I see in the interactions and the ability to give hot takes. That's really it. Um, to be honest, I only got it back was because I was publishing the book, and I figured I should have a next year, and I figured I should have a Twitter account if I'm going to be, writing actively, right? So all of that is to say, there are a lot of weird hot takes going on currently, like you mentioned. Uh, Is it not fun anymore? I don't know. It depends on your idea of fun. If you like the being constantly outraged, it's fun. Um, I guess the main thing I'll say that Twitter has had somewhat of an effect on my life in that it almost completely changed my mind on the Iran war. I would say, um, weirdly enough, go how is it because people like made arguments that convinced you? No, it's because the opposite happened. People made arguments that were clearly nonsense, and everybody was making them. So, like, I guess we'll start with this as the most meaty of all the subjects, and then sure, we could discuss the Pope. Because why not? Just throw it out. Let's just go all in. Let's not even right. Like, why not? The Pope, the war, everything controversial. Let's just do it. Uh, So, with the Iran war, my original opinion of the war was basically that I was disappointed when I heard that it was happening. Um, I figured, and by the way, I still think this is probably at least partially true. I figured what happened is that after Trump's huge success in Venezuela, uh, and admittedly, even though I what am and was publicly I against the intervention in Venezuela, I don't think it was a good idea. There is no doubt that on a purely material level, it was like wildly successful. Right? Uh
Mm-hmm.
okay, so after the intervention in Venezuela, Trump's riding high. He looks like a genius. Everything, America looks like a powerhouse again. Israel smells opportunity. And Netanyahu comes in and makes a pitch. And by the way, there are some reports that came out that this happened. Not that I really believe it. Uh, I don't really believe any of these reports, but uh, reports do come out that corroborate this. This is what I assumed happened anyway, though, which is why I'm inclined to say that there's probably some truth to them. Netanyahu sweet talks Trump and says, "Hey, Iran's been a thorn in our side for a while. It's been a thorn in your side for a while, and I think we have an opportunity right now where you could be the greatest foreign policy president in American history and end the Iran issue once and for all that's been plaguing your country for 40 years since Jimmy Carter, right? Like, this is your chance, and you could do it with limited American casualties, 4 days in and out, decapitate the leader. We have men in arms nearby. We'll do the rest, right?" And Trump bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Um, and then he bombed Iran, accomplished his goal, killed the Ayatollah, and but then Iran didn't surrender. So they just kind of kept trucking on. So my thought was, well, this was obviously not a good idea for a variety of reasons. First, there are really two main ones. First is that I don't think I generally just am opposed to getting involved in wars in the Middle East, right? Like, we've been in enough.
Right.
I didn't want to get into another one. I didn't think that this was. I didn't think it was a good idea to get involved in another. I just smelled like, oh great, another never-ending war, right?
Yes.
The second problem that I had was that it was a very unpopular war, which is simply like, even if you think he was right and it was a good idea to do it, I just don't like the idea of the president doing something against the express will of the American people,
Right.
right? Like, that shouldn't really be a thing. So I thought, like, yeah, okay, I don't really think this was a good idea. Now, you might notice various things I didn't mention, though, which is like, do I think that Iran just, like, it was a clear, Iran is innocent and Trump was clearly the aggressor? I mean, no, obviously that's not true. The problem here was not that Trump didn't have every right to fight Iran. Iran has been killing American troops and funding terrorist organizations for 40-ish years, right?
Yep.
Nonstop, basically. And yes, them building a new being against Iran, getting a nuke has been American policy since the Carter administration, right? Like, this is not new, So obviously, my problem wasn't that Iran didn't deserve it. Like, to put it another way, if we were in a situation, from my perspective at the time, where it was like we could crush Iran with very little American casualties and no other long term impacts besides the crushing of Iran, they have earned it many times over. Like,
Yeah.
there's no question to me. That wasn't the issue. So that clearly, to me, that was not the issue. I'm like, obviously Iran's not innocent. Like, everybody knows that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then it's just like, no, apparently people did not know that. People lost their minds over this. And it just,
Yeah.
like, shocked me. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, people would say things, and I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, you just get this idea that's like the narrative kind of turned into, so there was Iran minding its own business, doing nothing but, vibing, right?
Making
In
Persian
perfect harmony with
carpets
the Jews and Christians. Uh,
and
when
then the
all of a
Fire
sudden
Nation.
Netanyahu, probably twirling his mustache evilly, convinced that stupid idiot madman Trump, probably by appealing to his ego, to bomb them into smithereens because he's evil, right? Uh, and Trump did it because Trump is a lunatic. And this seemed to be like the right was saying this. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I missing here? Have I lost my mind? And nobody seemed to be bringing up any, like, except as very tertiary concerns, the issues that I was actually concerned with, right? Everybody was like making arts like, no, this wasn't a just war. Meanwhile, their presentation of just war is not the classical presentation. It's deeply flawed, right?
Right.
Uh, yes, I understand that the catechism also has like an altered form of just war teaching in it. That's not the historic Catholic or the historic Christian position. It's not the
Mm.
one that would have been used by Thomas Aquinas. Uh, sorry, the fact that it's written in the catechism is unfortunate as far as I'm concerned. It shouldn't be. Because that's not just war. Thomas Aquinas, for one thing, very, very clearly states retribution as a possible motive, as a just motive for war. Uh, he actually is very clear about it. And that's the other thing. People go, no, but modern technology has changed things. This is where I think the Catholic Church actually gets it wrong quite a bit. And it's somewhat understandable because everybody gets this wrong. But people don't really understand what modern technology does. Yes, it can be used for increased destruction, right? Like that is a thing you could do with it. But more commonly, and in fact, what we have been seeing and how Trump has used it and how basically everyone has used it, Russia, even Ukraine, right, is that it's used for greater precision. Like it's not actually used just to increase destruction to indiscriminate levels, it's used to target things with more precision. So in that case, it's like, okay, as far as I'm concerned, that actually should increase the circumstances on a net level where a just war could possibly be valid, because the odds of it escalating into, really unfortunate things is actually less likely under modern technology, right? Like, it's very odd that we talk about, it's like, oh, but they didn't have the capacity for, like, the sort of bombing that we had, aerial bombing that we had now. Right, yeah, but they also didn't have the capacity to drop smart bombs that went down people's chimneys and targeted individual people.
And then post a video on Twitter as a victory.
Right. Like, so it's just so bizarre to me. And slowly, like, as I was seeing all of this, and then people just losing their minds, Ed Fazer, who is a man who I had so much respect for, like, yeah, it's really hard. He was probably one of the people I respected most in the world. I would have said he was in like my top 5 intellectuals, right? That
Mm.
I read. I literally wrote him an email like thanking him. This was, now granted, I was a dumb high school student at the time, so make of that what you will, like, or like right out of high school or something. But I was a dumb teenager, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I sent him an email like thanking him for keeping me from becoming an atheist, like legitimately. And he very kindly responded. And don't get me wrong, he's still an excellent philosopher. It's not like he's lost his touch or anything like that, but he's just had like the most ridiculous takes about Trump and the war and everything. Like, it's insane to
Yep.
me. Like, he'll say things like, this is an obviously unjust war. Well, why? Because you can't fight wars of prevention. Okay, yeah, you can't fight someone with the idea of, what does that mean? It means that you can't attack a country with this idea of, just in case they do something in the future, we're going to stop them from doing it now, right? However, you absolutely can attack a country that is either A, actively attacking you or funding your enemies, which Iran was doing, um, or B, that would attack you if they could, which was the worry with nuclear weapons, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the thing that I don't get. And even like, may Allah forgive me, Vox Day will sometimes bring this up, and I'm like, but I think you're missing context here. Uh he'll go like, oh, they've been 5 years from getting nuclear weapons for years. Right, because every time this happens, we go to war with them. Like, it's not like that they get close and then we just move the goalposts. They get close and then we fight them. Like, that's the reason they haven't gotten them, because we have kept fighting them. Like, they
Yeah.
go, oh, but what happened? And then he just makes comments that are just like straightforwardly wrong. Where you go like, oh, the idea of them getting nuclear weapons, like you would need to think that the entire country was in favor of getting destroyed. It's like, you absolutely would not, though. Like, I don't know why you're saying that. Like, even if let's assume that you're correct, that you would get, it's unreasonable to think that they would use it, which I don't, by the way, think. I absolutely think they would use it, but um, let's assume you're correct. That doesn't even matter. Your argument just doesn't make any sense. The populace isn't making the decisions. They have no say. Like, the populace doesn't need to be in favor of their government dropping the bomb. Like, why would they even care what their like? America didn't pull the populace before it dropped the atom bombs on Japan. We didn't even know the atom bombs existed. Like, what on earth does that have to do with anything that they would be destroyed? Like, why are you even bringing this up? Like, I just didn't get it. And like, so many comments like this, like, and finally I was like, it's like, I think I might kind of be in favor of the war now. Like, because I've just been responding to so many bad arguments that I kind of talked myself into, like, no, I mean, it kind of worked out. Like, we barely lost any men. We got the uranium. It's like, oh, but the Strait, there was a bunch of stuff happening with the Strait. I mean, yeah, okay. We had a few weeks of higher gas prices as a result of this. Now the Strait's open again. We got the uranium. We barely lost any men. We crippled them at the very least for a while, and they are an enemy of the USA. So I'm
Right.
like, was this a bad thing? Maybe it wasn't.
We
Maybe
are,
it's like the meme, right? Like,
yeah.
I'd like to see old Donnie Trump wriggles out of this one easily. Nevertheless.
The
Okay.
nevertheless is what always gets me.
Yes.
So it's
Uh,
like
that's my
nevertheless.
rant of the moment. There's a lot more to say, and we can certainly pivot to the Pope later, but I want you to give your
Yeah,
say so I don't dominate the whole thing.
that's fine. I dominate this stuff plenty. So the Iran war is something that I have a pretty easy philosophy. I live in America. I'm a blooded American. Unlike my racially ambiguous friend, who is so embroiled in soprano culture that he says "bada bing" off stream no less than 5 times a minute.
It's true.
It's true. It's entirely true. I've lived in his house. He'll open the fridge and go "bada bing." But me, as a wasp, I hate fun like that. The idea that I should crack a smile at nothing less than my pastor telling me I'm a sinner from the pulpit, me personally, is entirely unknown. Uh, I mean, come on, Anthony. You've got a whole like sainted picture of Polly Walnuts on the wall. But me, no, I've got no joy like that. Instead, I have America. Yeah. And ever since Chainsaw Man ended, Yoru in the America flag bikini telling us we should bomb more small nations. It's all right. I don't think there's been any changes since Chainsaw Man and Yoru fought each other with the state of Michigan as a sword. So, you know, I'm just saying that there haven't been any changes at all. In fact, despite anyway, this gag's probably gotten a little too esoteric.
Yeah, a
Uh,
little too
a little to it. You had
nit.
to you had to actually enjoy the ending of Chainsaw Man, which is where our present state flowed from. Um, no, like I've been pro the Iran war simply because what am I going to do about it? Be a dissident? Be a stick in the mud? Oh, but Ben, it didn't happen exactly cleanly, and some bad things happened, and they may have sabotaged that aircraft carrier from their own troops, who should be shot for that. And like shot, and maybe their families deported because I bet they weren't really American like me or even Anthony. Um,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, we don't want to fight another war for the Jews. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Uh, the fact is that they're there, and I'm not a fan. I'm against all the tricks and all this jazz. The idea that a good Christian should ignore the fact of Jewish deceptions and such is an absolutely satanic idea. You know, there, you know, you can say, I'm not falling for this and have it be completely, you know, kosher to say har har. So I've been for the Iran war, unironically. Uh, they'd have to nuke an aircraft carrier before I go, I don't know. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. If we've lost this war already and or we're losing it, why in the world did we just successfully invade an Iranian ship? You know, why are we successfully sticking around in the Strait of Hormuz? Well, don't you know that we're not as close as some of the other targets? Why does it seem like they're not bombing as many people as they did before? You know, why is that? You know, it's you know, it's not like they're not bombing. They were a lot more capable than we thought, because they saw us and our strategy of murdering every leader of every group that they can get their hands on, and said, we're going to decentralize. And it turns out that was a really good strategy to use to counter our strategy of killing all the negotiators. You know, it's like, but here's the thing, like, even knowing that, even talking about it, what in the world are we supposed to do? Are you going to move somewhere else? Most of these people are posting from America. They're doing better than I am. You know, they have jobs and opinions and everything else like that. And it's like, are you actually falling for the propaganda? Like, look, if the threat of the hypersonic missiles were all that, I promise you they would have used them against our ships way before, you know, we would have done it. Instead, they targeted our bases, they targeted potential allies, and they targeted, you know, Israel. You know, we didn't lose a ship, or at least they haven't reported a single ship being sunk. Like, it turns out American naval power is supreme still. You know, this isn't the Syracuse expedition that people were thinking. Um, you know, instead we have the same old opinions, bringing us back to the stream subject. The same old opinions. Hey, don't you you know, I'm right wing, but I'm not right wing anymore. Oh, I was for Trump until this. Oh, I uh you know, hate Israel, but this Iran war thing, I don't like it. You know, all these other nonsensical bleating of sheep, you know, is entirely to be expected from our feckless panikin brothers and sisters. But no, here's the thing. Like, and I made a big old post about it that should have gotten way more traction than it did, but it's like, nobody actually knows how an empire falls. People say, oh, the Romans brought in the Goths and they had bad monetary policy and this and that. But here's the thing, it was all of it at the same time and like three civil wars at once. You know, like an empire doesn't go down just because, you know, oh, they made some bad monetary policy. Oh, you know, they had a bad war or two. You know how many bad wars the Romans had? Tons. They were in the height of their power and they lost like 3 legions in Saudi Arabia. Nobody talks about it. They got by a guide who saw what was coming and patriotically uh, led them into the desert to die, and then escaped. You know, like they don't even talk about it. You know, or their African expeditions, or their expeditions into Germania. The only reason we know about the one that Arminius slaughtered is because it was that famous and it was a betrayal on the part of Arminius. Not a betrayal of his own people, but a betrayal of the Romans, who they trusted him. You know, oh, Varus, give me back my legions, give me back my eagles, whatever he said. You know, like, and that was during the height of one of the heights of Roman power. It was not even close to its peak. It was still on the rise. and they lost several armies for nothing, for less than nothing. Um, you know they they were Goths were invading. There was all these armies and fightings. Emperors were dying on the field, and Rome was still collecting taxes like nothing was wrong. In fact, the only time things got really bad was during the crisis of the second century, and that was defeated by one good emperor who didn't take shit from nobody. um it's and then it went on for for a couple hundred years more. Like it didn't die until finally the juice just wasn't there, and other people had not just like defeated Roman Empire and became their government and stuff like that, but they were actively carving out independent kingdoms within it in a permanent fashion, in a national fashion. And they just weren't sending taxes anymore. And quite frankly, they had been like that before, but had been happy to send taxes for their independence. Um, you know, it's then it's like you had the bad monetary policy, you had this, you had a weak emperor. Some dude put his kid on there and then went to fight for it, and lost. Um, Orestes or whatever his name was, put Augustulus up there. But it took 100 years of decline. There were like 7, 10 emperors who actively helped along the decline, and a couple who didn't. Like what I described it like, an empire dying is like, in the Roman sense, is like a man who is trying to perform surgery on himself while fighting off 10 dudes and his own left hand punching him in the face while driving a car that he's actively trying to be a mechanic to. Like these, and there's another, and his brothers yelling at him from the back seat. That's the Eastern Roman Empire. Like it didn't go down like easy. It went down swinging. Like it went down like, fighting every step of the way. The same with the Eastern Roman Empire. The amount of times it was over and then a good family took power and said it's so back, baby, is insane. Kingdoms fall all the time, but for some reason, Rome kept reinventing itself, kept fighting on, and we're the inheritors of Rome. Like whatever, Russia is, or Germany, or France, or even England, frankly, the spirit of Rome is in America, not anywhere else. Uh, but it's like, let's look at other empires. The Persian Empire never actually fell. It just evolved into something different for a hot minute. And then another a branch of the family came back, and either a Sassanid or a Parthian or whatever tribes that Alexander the Great mentions conquering. And then it comes back as the Seleucids, and then it comes back as a revival of the Persian Median Empire, or the Sassanids, or the Parthians, or the Safavids, or Iran. It's like, it's hard to understand it. Like China breaks apart every 300 years, has the bloodiest civil war of its time, and then forms back together. Like empires are more than just some sort of list of battles. You have to give up consistently and be defeated and be unable to take control of the empire, and people have to be convincing you to stop being an empire, which is what happened to like France and England. Like people can talk whatever they want about those empires, and what Churchill did, and others, but in like for Charles de Gaulle's case, France just didn't want the empire anymore, and they said, all right, look, you can stay or you can go. England tried to hold on, but what they did was they sabotaged, people who should have been allowed, like Rhodesia, who should have been allowed to take control. And it was liberalism and it was communism that tore down those petty kingdoms. It's like hearing people in Before the Return of Cyrus the Great, the goat, the literal goat declared by God. Um, the But it's like this, right? It's the same old opinions from people. right? They haven't actually said anything new about the Iran war. The people who hated Trump still hate him. There's a few people who knew that the butter of their bread was buttered on Trump's side of things, who, is coming out of the woodwork and all this jazz. You have some people doing that stuff. But empire isn't just going to fall because they have a bad Sicilian expedition. The reason why it hurt Athens is because Athens was a single city. It wasn't an empire. It was a bunch of islands that they had taken over. They had won some naval engagements. Like their empire was actually a lot more fragile than people realize. It wasn't even that many generations old. Like, you know, we rule a space where each individual state, except for maybe like Delaware and Rhode Island, is bigger than the Athenian Empire. Much bigger. Sparta had a bigger empire at some cases, but they had to fight Athens and Thebes and wherever else all the time, and so they fell apart. Like it's they let a cripple be their king, unironically. Like Egypt went through the same thing, collapse, bad dynasties. They had so many not great dynasties. But then they have a Ramses who pulls it together, or they decide to fight Babylon when Babylon's being blessed to conquer the world that matters. You know, Babylon fell, but again, that was, they fell pretty quickly, but also they were kind of a flash in the pan, and they had a very long empire beforehand. Like it's hard for me to exaggerate the fact that empires don't fall just because they have a bad series of engagements. Like you have to, like, if you look at our government, yeah, there's tons of bad actors, but the Democrats assume the American empire will continue and they are going to rule it. Like that's the key for them. They know the rules. They're willing to screw over the Republicans for rules when the Republicans aren't willing to do the same thing. Like it's like Spamberger in Virginia. The second the Democrats took power, they ruined everything they could get their hands on. Removed mandatory minimums for pedophiles. All this other stuff. But the thing is that we're just not going to have an armed revolt in America. At least not yet. You know, not for a generation, not even for 2 generations. We're still too comfortable. Babylon rises, Babylon falls, Babylon declares victory over Babylon. That's about right, Megabuster Shepherd. So it's like what people expect out of these things is is not right. It's just they don't get it. Like even Vox Day hasn't really gotten it. Like for some, like he has made some posts about the American Empire being over if their ships are destroyed by hypersonic missiles, or at least has implied it. That China will take over the sea. Well, no, China's a bullshit power. Yes, they look good right now. They're looking to reintegrate Taiwan, but in reality, the second they're fighting an actual hard target, they crumble. Vietnam whipped their asses, and they've whipped their asses their entire civilization's life. Occasionally, they get submitted and then they rebel. Where do you think they had got the means and the knowledge to defeat us in a fight? Yeah, sure, we could have like genocided them and won the fight, but that's not how we like to fight things. But that's what it would have had to take, and no great empire likes to just genocide everyone. It's hard to it's just like China, like Russia is fake and gay. They just haven't been caught out yet, like Russia has in the Ukraine. That's a good way to put it. Like Russia's the same way. Technically, Ukraine has been a part of the Russian Empire since time immemorial. It was even one of the starting points for it. But whatever Putin's power actually is, and I think he hasn't really put as much treasure in it as people think. He's used a lot more mercenaries than you think. But it's like in the end, he hasn't seen it worthwhile to take it over with an army, or to like he lost the spy engagement and we got our guy in. But he hasn't seen fight to fight it out. a Megabuster Shepard. There will be a second American century. It might not be a comfortable century, but realistically, we're still the number one power for the next 30 years. Yeah, yeah, and that's my argument here. Like, we could be losing the Iran war somehow, but that's only if you define the terms as us having a ground invasion of Tehran and moving in 1 million men to fight it. But quite frankly, that was never in the cards. That was never on the table. Besides the fact that we don't really have a 1 million man army willing and ready to do it, but also, like, who said that was the goal? We're going to free Tehran. We're going to have them rebel against their people. Okay, that's cool. We did the things we said we were going to do, and we haven't lost any ships. And they've lost their ships. They've lost their leadership, which I don't really agree with that one too much. You can't negotiate peace if you've killed everyone who can negotiate peace. Um, you know, the only thing that's stuck in our craw is the fact that Israel demanded we do it, and had decided that we serve them rather than they serve us, which has always been their problem. That's the real flaw in this whole scheme. Someone else told us to do it. A state that should be a slave to us decided that they're more important than their masters, who give them everything they need to survive, down to the very air they breathe. And I mean this from a philo-Semitic point of view. I love the Jews. However, the state of Israel exists on us, and my pennies that make it to the budget go directly to them. I've had to pay on my taxes, so I feel it. I feel it. They must serve. Uh, but yeah, and it's like hearing the same old opinions, same old opinions. No thought, no logical construct of, hey, how does the world actually work? Hey, what's the actual state of the Iran war, and how does Iran, how does empire actually work? Ugh.
Yeah, it's I think I more or less agree with everything you're saying. Like, there is no country that's going to overcome America. Again, I mentioned this with China before. We've discussed it in the past, but like my main thing with like, oh, China can take Iran. It's the same. By the way, as I've been thinking, like it's the same with Russia and Ukraine. Oh, Russia is gonna dominate this war with Ukraine. They could take Ukraine anytime. All right, we've been waiting. Like, win the
Go
war.
for it.
Go ahead. Like, win. America has not gotten involved, so you can't blame us for this. Like, seriously, if it's really that easy, like, you
Yep.
could just do it, then do it. And obviously, Ukraine is ridiculously corrupt. Obviously, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
nobody would say otherwise. I don't even know any, or at least nobody who has half a brain, right?
Right.
Uh, would deny the incredible corruption of Ukraine. But like, it's the same with China, where like I hear it all the time. It's like, oh, they're more powerful. It's like, all right, if China can take Taiwan, then do it. Like, then why haven't they? It's right there. Go ahead. Now, there is a chance, and I actually hope that this happens, that there's going to be a peaceful reunification of Taiwan. That would be great. I hope they do it. Uh, but like, this idea that like, oh, China is like the most powerful, they're just allowing Taiwan to live. It's like, really? So they're just okay with it? Like, is that even the Chinese position? Because I don't think it is. Like with Russia and Ukraine, like, oh, Russia's just holding back. Like, what, they're holding back? What are they holding back for? Who why would they hold back? That doesn't make any sense.
My
America
my
hasn't. What was
mm,
that?
my argument for Russia, to be clear, isn't so much holding back as they are deliberately wasting mercenaries on this thing.
Like, you might be right too, but it's been a long time now. So there does come a point where I'm just like, okay, do it then. Like, oh, we're right on the verge of Russia winning this war. I felt like, like this is the thing where, like, with Vox, with all due respect, sometimes he will make predictions be wildly wrong and then just kind of act like he isn't. Like, and he does do this sometimes, you got to admit.
Yeah, he does do
R-
it.
Russia is one of the big ones where it's like, Russia, he was like, oh, they're going to end the war within like 6 months. And then, like, it's not over. And yet he has acted as if he's just been completely correct on this. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I feel like eventually you got to be like, hey, maybe Russia's not doing as well as you thought they were. Like, and that's not to say that Ukraine, that's the thing. I remember having this conversation with people in my family. Like, eventually I just kind of was like, I have no idea what the fuck is happening in Russia anymore. Like, in that war. Like, is anything even
Hmm.
going on? Like, is anything even happening there? I have no idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bradford Walker says Vox got sucked into the CCC shill sphere, and that's why he's been so wrong on all this. Well, it's true that he's been reading from the CCP shill sphere. Vox is a big boy and can speak for himself, obviously. Um, but I'm sure if you were to ask him, he would say something along the lines of, well, who do you trust more, Clown World or the CCP? Uh, and also he would say that he is reading between the lines and judging for himself, and he has deemed them more trustworthy. I don't agree.
They
Um,
like, yeah, sure, they're more trustworthy to post about different things that happen in America that the average HR maven isn't going to allow pointed on the press. But also, they're going to lie to shit about their own stuff. Like, you think they report on tofu drag construction, or their financial troubles, or all this stuff? Half the reason they're going back into Taiwan, I am sure, is because their own industry of standards has gone to pot for years. They've lost so many people. Their ability to invigorate people to work is just there. It's like the 996, except for gig workers. What do you mean gig workers have to live like a Chinese office slave? Like, they're already at the bottom of the barrel, but now they have to also, like, take one for the team for Timu. It's nonsense.
yeah, yeah, it's there's a lot going. Like, again, with the war in Ukraine, it's like, frankly, I barely believe there's anything happening anymore, uh, because they just stopped reporting on it, and it's weird because it's like they stopped reporting on it, but it's not like Russia's won. It's like, oh, so they stopped reporting because now they're losing and they can't hide it. It's like, okay, if that's the case, then why hasn't Russia announced that they've won? Like, because they haven't. Like, they haven't won yet. Now, that's not to say, do I think Russia is going to win? I think they probably will. Yes. Uh, I think in the long run they will win. It's simply a matter of will, right? And I think that they're going to have the higher will in this case. But um, at the very least, it's like this has clearly not been the slam dunk victory that Russia wanted, right? Like, it hasn't
Yep.
happened that way. And it's the same with Iran, where it's like with Iran, somebody pointed this out, and I think this kind of gets to my point where you go like, "Oh, this was a clear defeat for the U.S." Like, let's flip this around for a moment. If you like bombed America's major cities, completely decimated their government, and basically had them replace all of their government officials, like blockaded their ports, surrounded the country, but then you said, "Ah, but you didn't get our uranium." Would you like would anybody seriously be like, "I guess we won?" Like, no. And then we got the uranium anyway. So, as far as I could tell, there isn't really any argument that we didn't win anymore. Like, we clearly won.
Yep.
Like,
Like, we can board the ships with impunity. We've blockaded the ports. We have reported that we've gotten the uranium. They haven't invaded us. They haven't even struck our mainland. They've hit Israel, but let's be real, Israel deserved it. Like, what are they? Like, what's our lose conditions? That we lose our ships that we haven't lost. Like, it's like whatever, whatever propaganda arm you want to look at, it's very clear that while sure we're not landing a million man army, the legions aren't marching into Persia again to get bodied, um, or be hailed as liberators. Who cares? It's not going to be as easy as that, and it's never been. You can sack Ctesiphon all you want. Persia's going to retreat, regroup, and attack again. Um, it's easy to sack Ctesiphon. Like 10 emperors did it, even bad ones, against decently strong Persian emperors. like, what do you want? Like, the point is that if we do all this stuff, when actually reopen it, tariff this, tariff that, get out of NATO, which might be the end goal on the sideways way, you know, and Israel gets punished for their hubris. Like, what's our loss? That we spent money that was rotting away in munition dumps anyway. Like it's like, oh, some servicemen got injured. I'm sorry to hear that. They were, I don't know if they were heroes or anything like that, but I really hope their family is able to get a pension and get some relief, through counseling and all this jazz. Like there's, like that's callous, but it's like, okay, so we're playing more games, right? People die in the war. People do this in the war. Russia is not losing the fight because they've taken more territory than they've lost, and they've lost nothing. They've retaken Crimea, which is rightful Russian soil. It's like China gets reunited with Taiwan. It's like, okay, so things get back to what they were 200 years ago.
Yep.
And so it's like, that's the reason why I call this thing the same old opinions. It's not because of some sort of like, um, the opinions are, like we're talking about it because we got to talk about the news sometime. We really enjoy it, but it's like, we get frustrated reading these people who should have been ignored for their bad takes years ago. Like, like it's like, well, they're on our side now. Okay, they're not going to be on our side the second Trump does a Trump and they don't like him again. You can't like buddy up with the enemy in any serious way. It's like with things like Academic Agent. Yeah, sure, he has better takes, he's smarter, than the average commentator. He also hates America, and he's not a Christian. So when he talks about America, it's with a grain of salt that he wants the empire to fall, the empire that we enjoy right now, who makes the internet he talks on viable. Do you think Indians can maintain these servers? Patently, no. They can't even maintain a start menu. Windows has just announced they're going over that from scratch. Do you know how fucked a program has to be gone over from scratch? Like, like I, it's like, it's like looking at a porn star's list of movies. That's how bad it is for, for a start menu. One of the first things an OS creates to be recreated from scratch. Like, like the fact is that white Americans rule this place, and make it run. Unfortunately, they were very kind to people who should have been in gentle subjection to them, and they're ruining it. But the thing is that like when America falls into collapse, like they're not going to be able to handle it. They're just going to form their ethnic enclaves, and it's just going to be Wild West 2.0 in the end, assuming we survive enough Americans survive and harden up for it. So, like, yeah, no, all this fallen empire stuff is ridiculous. It's nonsense. I'm not going to be like, oh, the empire's stronger than ever. No, the empire was at its peak in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Patently so, 50s to the 90s. And then it was at its peak of military power from the aughts to now. And we're still at the peak of our military power because whatever happens to our allies, the heartland, the actual place that matters is untouched. And this might be hubristic and all this jazz. Yeah, Israel lacks a definitive win condition. That's the big problem here. But at the same time, the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. We're raiding their oil reserves. I'm sure we're raiding their tankers. Guess what? They can't go to the Strait of Hormuz, and we took over Venezuela's oil fields. Like there was like 90 million barrels of oil or something ridiculous like that we took. Now they're coming to us and we're going to sell it to them. Like that doesn't benefit me, but it's like, okay, the empire continues to hum. And it's like with Feezer and other people, or people talking about the Pope. It's like the Pope is liberal again. My dude. And my brother-in-law, Anthony Marquetta, most honorable one. We understand what goes on this entire time, both from the Protestant side and the Catholic side. If your faith depends on a single man being based when he has never been based before in living memory, you know, you don't really have a faith in God. You have a faith in men. If your faith is rocked because an imperfect man is imperfect, you never understood the faith. And believe you me, well, you Catholics, and I mean this non derogatorily, when I say you Catholics, we Protestants go over constantly. Ravi Zacharias was a prince of preachers, and it turned out he liked going. He owned some massage parlors where he had a mistress, as part of a health chain. It's like, oh, fuck, many times this comes up. But he was quite frankly, he was of a Dravidian aspect. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a culture that has mistresses formalized. And frankly, he just didn't overcome his cultural inclination to sexual immorality, which is, one of the great downfalls of preachers, but whatever. It's like that. Like if you're screaming about the Pope, because he said a liberal thing, like, and I did this as well, but that was just because I was offended. Like, what do you mean you're going to honor the Muslim dead before the Christian dead? That's beyond just the Pope being like, oh, we should treat the immigrants nicely, perhaps. It's frustrating. It's in the same vein as the empire of America is dying, or Trump is wrong again, or whatever. Yeah, sure. Going to the Muslim dead before the Christian dead is offensive. It is a bad smell. It's a bad take. But you know what? I bet he didn't even know where he was going until like the day before. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, so as far as like Cobleo, I find him to be mostly milquetoast inoffensive. That's really my read of him. I think that when we see him do things like you mentioned, which don't get me wrong, is bad. Um, I think your take is probably mostly right. That's just like honestly, I doubt he even realized like what it was, and then some intern told him like, "Oh yeah, you want to honor the dead people here, right?" And then they go like, "Wait, who are they?" And then somebody told him, then it's like, "Well, then why the fuck did you take me here?" Right? Like
The
I
people on Twitter will be offended.
yeah. And it's also like Cobleo has made it's pretty funny. He made like this joke before. He came late to like a papal conference or like I think it was one of the public St. Peter's meetings. And he's like, "Sorry, I'm late. I am the vicar of Christ on earth, so of course I have no time to myself and cannot make my own schedule." Uh which is a good joke. I laughed, but it does kind of illustrate the problem here where it's like you got to be kind of careful with like, oh, the Pope did this, the Pope did that. Now, this isn't to say I want to give excuses for everything, but I think you have to look at everything in the overall context of like a body of work. And as far as Leo's overall context, I think he was elected to be milquetoast, and I think he has been milquetoast. Uh like I think he has been what he was elected to be. After Francis, they didn't want a hardline traditionalist, and they didn't want another hardcore liberal who was Francis. Uh like, which he was, by the way. Uh, People have written like scholarly works on this. There are receipts. There's a great book on it, The Disastrous Pontificate, that is not just like it's not like one of those tell-all narratives. No, it's more like a documented list of with like receipts of everything that happened during his pontificate. Yeah, it's much more scholarly than the name would imply. Uh, like Leo is not going to be like that, and Leo hasn't been like that, right? Um, Generally, you'll get like occasionally you'll get like a cringe thing, like, "Oh, Leo blessed a block of ice." Now, I was like, even when at it with a priest at one point, I don't think he should have done that, because, but to be fair, I do understand that the reason that I don't think he should have done that is a reason that most normies will not agree with me with, which is that I think that the climate change thing is a grift run by Marxists, right? Like, and the fact that
Right.
he was doing anything for the climate change activists at all is like, why are you why are you there with the Marxists who are trying to run a grift? Uh People don't agree with that, right? Like, there are people who go like, no, they're just an environmental group and that's fine. That's like these are all minor things or things I don't care about. Like, when it comes to the Iran war, and this is where it gets weird to me, right? To be honest, I think that Leo has been fine, right? Like, basically fine. I think people have gotten autistic about his anti-war takes, kind of, where they've been like, "Oh, he said no war ever, but don't they know about David or whatever?" It's like, yeah, okay, the Pope knows who David is, right? The Pope knows who Saint Joan of Arc is. The Pope knows who, like, clearly he is trying to make the point that war needs to be a last resort. Like, okay, sure, whatever. Believe it or not, though, if you actually paid attention to what he said and when he said it, he actually commented on the Iran war almost never. Like, really very little. By the way, am I still on?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason I'm checking is because I know that's a weird question, but I'm having issues with my computer here. So with long stretches of silence, I just want to make sure that it's working.
I'm just letting you rant.
No, it's good. Yeah, my browser is acting up weirdly, so I just want to make sure it didn't disconnect me. All right. Anyway, uh, cool. So anyway, yeah, like, I honestly think Leo's been fine. I think people have gotten kind of autistic on his comments about like, oh, like no war ever. Like, yeah, okay, there are circumstances where there could be good war, but I get his point, right? Like, we should really be trying to de-emphasize war. But he's spoken very little about the Iran war. The one time he said something was when Trump threatened to bomb civilian infrastructure. And then he's just like, yeah, like, hold on, you can't do that. And, he's right. Like, you can't. Now, from Trump's perspective, it was obvious to anybody, again, with a brain that he wasn't going to do that, right? But, like, I can see why. It's like, you don't want to keep silent. Sure, whatever. All of this, again, is, to me, very milquetoast, right? Like, there really isn't even that much to talk about. And then people are acting like, oh, he's standing up to Trump. And then what did Trump say? Trump is like, yeah, I don't think he's done a very good job. I think he's been stupid. I think he's been naive, right? And then it's like, okay, so Trump is a Protestant and he is allowed to not like the Pope and not think the Pope is doing a good job. From the way people react, you would
That's
think Trump
right.
like went on a
That's right.
rant and insulted his mother. Like, he is allowed to say, I don't think the Pope is doing a good job. And a lot of his points were correct. A lot of people were like, oh, he, like, even Ed Fazer, like, reposted this, like, he lied about what the Pope said. The Pope never said he was okay with Iran getting a nuke. No, that wasn't what Trump said. Trump's point was that his stance would lead to Iran getting a nuke. Apparently, because that is his stance, the Pope is okay with that. That was what Trump was trying to say, right? Like, which, fair enough, I guess. Like, if you think that is a good trade-off to avoid war, right? Like, then yeah, Trump kind of has a point. But the main issue, of course, and what everybody really knows has nothing to do with the war. The war is a side issue. The only reason all the trads rallied around him with the war is because they happened to agree with him. And this is why it disgusted me so much. This is the thing that really upset me about like this entire incident is that everybody going like rally around the Pope. It's like, brothers, like less than like 6 months ago, The quote. So this is we're gonna get into some of the inside Catholic baseball, right? Uh, the Vatican puts out a document on the Marian title of co-redemptrix and says co-mediatrix and says, hey, we should
Gross.
what yeah, whatever. Uh I have literally could not be less interested in debating it because these are like and you'll learn why in a moment. Um they put out a document on these titles. And the document is literally like, hey, like maybe we should avoid using them because like even if they're understood properly, they're just way too easily misunderstood and abused. So maybe avoid it, right? Like, and to be more specific, they go, me just avoid co-redemptrix. It's just too right, like too misleading. And co-mediatrix, you should really only use it in like academic contexts or if there's like a historic reason. Yeah. Otherwise, just kind of avoid it. Right. Okay. Fair enough. That's fine. The reaction from the traditional side of Catholicism was so angry. People like vowing to never drop those titles, right? Like, I'll get, they people saying like Mary's been dishonored, that he's stripping her of titles at the Vatican, right? Like, now, again, to be honest with you, I understand that from a Protestant perspective, like, well, obviously, this is, if anything, not far enough, right? But it's a good start, right? From a Catholic perspective, like from me, I'm like, I feel like you're allowed. You could say that you don't think that this is a prudential decision based on like what you think would be what you think is going to cause confusion, right? So I can understand someone going like, I think this is a bad prudential decision, and that's where you stand. Okay. If that's the case, though, like the Vatican came out with this under Pope Leo like 6 months ago, and you're out there publicly saying, I refuse to abide by this. And now, because the Pope is making comments you agree with, you're like, I stand with Pope Leo. Really? Because you only seem to stand with him when he agrees with you. Like, you don't really seem very interested in standing with the Pope. Under Pope Francis would say some of the most shocking things and make changes even when they were in like, off the cuff interviews or whatever. Like the famous Amoris Laetitia, I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, footnote that seemed to allow communion to divorced and remarried Catholics, which, by the way, was then confirmed in a document by Buenos Aires that clarified it, right? This is like a major and concrete change in teens. Like, there is nobody I know on the traditional side who thinks this is a good idea. And they were very public about it. They were very loud about it. They were like, no, this is awful. This is terrible. Like, I think this is absolutely wrong. Right? Like, so you're willing, clearly standing with the Pope, it doesn't matter to you. Right? Like, you don't actually care about standing with the Pope. And my position, I think, is, as far as I'm concerned, it's the should be Catholic position. I think that and this is from a Catholic, not for anyone, but as a Catholic, I think the Pope is owed respect in virtue of his office. He is not, his statements are not owed automatic agreement, and I do not automatically agree with anything. Depending on the level of authority he is invoking when he makes a statement, that will depend on how much we should listen and also on what he is talking about. Now, on a matter like just war, right? Oh, the Pope has made comments on just war that, like, now he's clearly allowed to speak on this. Right, he is, but you're missing some crucial context here, which is that whether or not a war is just relies on external factors, facts that we either can agree or disagree with. If we don't agree on the relevant facts, then the conclusions we come to might be very different. And there's one very big one here, which is that I think Iran was clearly the aggressor. I think it's very obvious that they were the aggressor. I think it's shocking that people don't think they were the aggressor. Yeah, it took a while for America to finally hit them while they played the, we're not touching you game, right? But so fucking what? Like, they've been doing it. They've been funding terrorist groups for like 40 years. And America
Yep.
hasn't done anything about it until Trump finally did something because they were apparently on the verge of making nuclear weapons again.
Yes.
So, which But once again, like people hear that and then they go like, "Oh, so they were on the verge before, but they didn't get them before." Like, yeah, because we stopped them before, so we need to stop them now. And
Yep.
we did stop them now. Like, this is a prudential judgment the Pope is making based on facts that you can dispute, and I do dispute. Also, he's using a criterion for just war that is not the traditional Catholic criterion. They're not the criterion St. Augustine used. They're not the criterion Thomas Aquinas used. They are they are much stricter and frankly unreasonable. Nobody would seriously consider abiding by them. The idea that war can only be defensive is extremely recent, is not in the Catholic tradition.
Yeah. And with things like the Iran war, when I say Israel started it, I mean in the sense of now. They've been an opponent since Ayatollah Khomeini came into power. There was the Iran Contra scandal. There was the Argo thing. It's there's tons of stuff there. There's tons of stuff there that would be perfectly justified for a just war. But it's my offense is that we didn't
Oh
start it.
yeah.
Israel made us start it. It's that sort of thing. But it's like with other people, and even beyond things like politics, it's just been poor opinions after poor opinions. Like there's it's culture is in a stalemate. It has to move one way or another, and no one knows where it's going to go. But if you're stuck commenting on the culture or the war or this or that, it just kind of like lowers you if you don't have good variety, which I hope we provide here. Um, Things like talking about movies. I'm going to go see Lee Cronin's The Mummy. That looks good. I'm going to go see that after I do a bunch of paperwork tomorrow to relax. Um, just tuned in. What I missed? Nothing. Uh, but I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna relax, or maybe I won't enjoy it, and I'm just gonna walk out. I'm just gonna walk out of the movie. I'm not buying popcorn or soda or anything. I'm gonna do that, and I'll just never talk about it. It's like people just refuse to just not talk about bad movies. People are just refusing to just not talk about things that they've talked about forever that people understand. Like people's brands are in decline, and it's weird because I'm seeing this from like me and Anthony have been commenting about a mutual poster. He knows who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Where he hasn't really had a new opinion in years. He had a very good book series that we really enjoyed, or at least I really enjoyed it. I don't know if you read it, but it's just he's just been posting the same things and badly with using the wrong examples. Um, it's there's not much we can do about that. It's like he had a friend who went through the same thing except earlier. And unfortunately, I bought his course. I was young and foolish. I'm so sorry. But it didn't help. Buying the course doesn't help. It just never does because you don't want to do it once you bought the course. The but it's like I actually went over a bunch of their numbers and I found that the guy was juicing his Kickstarters, so that they were successes. Like there's something lost in the grifter, quasi grifter, section of Twitter. Captive Dreamer, someone else, hasn't posted anything relevant except for a few good memes. Neurotic Nationalist and Bronze Age Pervert and a few others have done some interesting stuff. Um, BAP's episode on the Hungary election is pretty interesting. But it's especially with what we'll end the night on. But it's like we haven't really seen any good opinions. Nothing that we can really sink our teeth into. And we don't want to just turn into a thing where we just spotlight new authors. Like the goal for the Superversive Sunday Post is to talk about things, talk about uplifting things. Provide a voice in a different sort of way, especially a Christian voice, to build you up. And even though we're saying, hey, look, these people have kind of bad opinions. They don't really they don't really have what it takes anymore. They don't have that joie de vivre. They need to evolve. I'm in the process of evolving myself right now. It's hard. It's really hard work, and I failed like 5 times since April.
Pokemon makes it look so easy.
It does. I just rub a stone on myself, except when I do that, they go, Ben, you can't, you got a meth problem, Ben. Listen, if evolving from stone is so easy, how come Jesse Pinkman didn't evolve? Uh, anyway, um, oh, stupid. Um, but it's that kind of thing. Like, what what can you do with that? Like, what can you do to evolve yourself, make things fresh? Like, the fact is that for that one person I was talking about earlier, who we're going to just keep unnamed, uh his stories haven't been fresh either. Like, it's like with some of them, like Weichsel. Like, Weichsel does things fresh, but really they're kind of just too pornographic for us to promote as much as we'd want to. Like naked ladies on the cover. Like, I dig it. I'm glad that they're not actually showing any nips or lips or whatever. But it's like, it's just, I can't in good conscience show the cover arts, because um, I
Yep.
feel lust looking at them, so I can't really promote other people looking at them and retain my good conscience, such as it is. Um, and I'm not specific. I'm scrolling through them. I sat down on the toilet at church and opened up Twitter as one does, and it's like, for you, or following or whatever it was I was on, like, updated, and then it was like, you know, titties. It's like, I can't even escape this. Oh, and it's like, that's what the thing is. But it was like actually something that, you felt a desire to look at instead of somebody's bad opinions, non-fresh opinions. Like, for another person, unrelated person, to all this before, having him post about 2D art again. Buddy, I dig it. We love you. But, like, or we, accept you and you have a place in our show, but it's like, you gotta evolve yourself. Like, I'm trying to evolve Pinkerton's Ghosts. I've got some ideas that I'm going to go through to make it newer and better and something I can work on, because we worked on it for 5 years. And, quite frankly, I burned myself out, and I refused to admit it for too long. um so it's like, that you have to, as an artist, you have to evolve. You have to make choices to do things differently. Now, we're not saying, like, switch what type of art you make, right? The sculptor still has to do it, and you should always be making something that you can sell. But it's like, I went to a sculptor's residence, and his workshop and stuff like that. And he has these great sculptures of popes and famous men and women and all this stuff, and you can commission him for, a sum of money, for your beloved wife getting a statue, or whatever. And it'll take 2 or 3 years, but it'll be viewed. It's time for the multiverse arc, Ben. Mm. Actually, you can read that for Fantastic Schools. Uh, that's where I do my multiverse stuff. Um, but it's like, but in reality, he says he likes his abstract stuff the best, and he has this beautiful one called the Madonna, and it's like the cloak of Mary, a wrapping empty space, and it's this beautiful wave pattern. It kind of looks like a pitcher plant, but at least that was my first impression. But, like, if you but it, like, has this graceful feminine curve to it. As even though I'm no Mary worshiper, but there's a beauty to it. There's a beauty to the Madonna that you can't really talk about as a Protestant without people like, so you're going to turn Catholic, right? Fuck off. Not to you, Anthony. I love you, but the Madonna stuff, it's there is a beauty to it. There's a great beauty to it, but it's like, what actually sells for this guy, this famous sculptor, is, the famous people and the bas reliefs of popes and, other things like that. Um, so that's what he does, and then he does, these moldy things, these abstract pieces for his own amusement. Um, so it's like that, like, you can't do it all the time, and I know that certain people have had plenty of success, like editing and stuff like that, but as people, advertising their wares, there's a reason why, artists talk rises and falls, and having the same opinion from Critical Drinker all the time, which I've been tired of for years. I haven't even subscribed to him on YouTube for years. um
I
I
still
know,
enjoy him.
I know. So, like, here's the thing: he's funny to listen to, but the thing is that, like, I'd rather spend the time on, like, Seth the Zine or Reggie or something, who's also funny to listen to, except, you know, they make edgier jokes and aren't afraid of demonetization, or as afraid of demonetization. Fundamentally, Critical Drinker is not going to, um, is not going to jeopardize his careers as a commentator, as a whatever. Same with other people like we've mentioned here that we're going to just keep unnamed. Um, it's I dig it. You want to have a brand. The brand isn't working. It's not exciting people. It's not bringing people in to comment, and your opinions are bad. It's and there's how do you even talk to someone like that? Hey, we're doing an intervention. You've stagnated as an artist. Well, I've got more money on my Kickstarters than you. I don't care. This is about the art. Like, this is about the existence of it. Like, the fact is that, like, the artist isn't the art. The artist is as much the process as the art. um it's a whole thing, it's a whole existence. Like, me going to that sculpture guy's house, like, the way he lives, how he acts, like, he was a Christian man, but there was such a gentleness but such a will to him. Like, it was like one of those things where like, I found myself drawn to him, and he and I had a great conversation about the future and my own goals, and how we can, what to go for the future. Like, like, like it like, I consider it a deep shame I had to work after, um like, that I couldn't spend a little more time with him. Like, it's, but, like, it wasn't because he had such great insights about writing. In the end, the only insights I need is from my master, John C. Wright, to tell me when I'm doing that shit. uh you know I don't even need reviewers, quite frankly. Like, I need reviewers, but if I'm not going to have a personal revelation from 10 reviews on Goodreads or whatever for books I haven't published. What we need, especially as artists, is the pathway to evolve into something new, something good that people can, go behind, experience. Like, if you're just telling me the same thing over and over again, what's going to eventually happen is what happened on Twitter, where you're going to pick a target that does not fit your thesis, and it's going to show you for somebody that isn't, that just, basically, they're going to disagree with you and think less of you for it.
Yeah. Uh, I think that's about right. I mean, look, there's for obviously, just like anybody else in the world, there's nobody I entirely agree with on everything. There are things said by people who I greatly expect that have made me go like, "Why the fuck did you say that?" Uh, and yet, and yet, I am still able to communicate with them. Yeah, like it's really that simple. That's the thing
Yeah.
too. Like, we on the right, should not be playing the trying to think of the word. Starts with a D. D. I can't. I'm blanking on it. Well, you know what I mean. Like we shouldn't be.
Demeaning.
That's not it. Deplatforming is close, but also not quite what I'm thinking of.
Disavowing.
That's it. Thank you. The disavowal game. I just totally blanked on the word disavowal.
I disavow.
Yes. You know, like we on the right don't play the disavowal game, and this goes all the way to like I don't care who you're friends with, even if I don't like them, right?
Yeah.
Like you are allowed to be friends with people who I don't like. You are allowed to be friendly with people who I don't like. Because I am not right, like I'm not a cipher. I recognize this is a broad world. Like I would go so like if you were friends with Ben Shapiro, I might tell you like I think Ben Shapiro is a snake because I do, right? But I wouldn't tell you like don't talk with him anymore because that's not my business, right? Like you could have
Yep.
any number of reasons you might be friends with him. He might have helped you out one time. You might have shared some experiences together, right? Like I don't fucking know. I don't care. You
A
know?
magical weekend in Paris.
Yeah, magical weekend in Paris. Who knows? Things that you vowed not to tell. Uh yeah, like and then in this case I will name names and I'll name names because he's my friend, right? Like people like John Delarose, right? Like
Yeah.
John Delarose and his position on like LLMs and AI use. I'm trying to be more deliberate about using using LLM because artificial intelligence is highly misleading because it's not intelligent. Uh but okay, like the problem with LLMs, like why they are such a problem. Uh insofar as there is a problem, like Hillary Lane of Second Story, which is a great YouTube channel, by the way, absolute 10 of 10. We should contact her and see if she wants to be on the show. Although,
Why don't
frankly,
you
she's
contact
probably
her? You
what was that?
contact her. You contact her, Anthony.
I'll contact her. She's
I don't
probably
want
too
to
big for us, though, to be honest with you.
listen.
Uh,
I don't talk to. Look, I'm scared to talk to women. Okay, you'll have to take this one for the team.
that's fair. I could get my wife to do it. No. Anyway, seriously, she has a fantastic YouTube channel, Second Story. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a video on like LM use is going to ruin things. And you might like I remember having a conversation with like my sister. She goes, "Oh, well, you disagree with this video, right?" I said, "No, I think like I don't see anything I would disagree with it." And she's exactly right. Like the most I would disagree with is when she says like, "No, you really shouldn't use LLMs at all." Like,
Mm.
I don't know if I would go that far. I think that there are valid use cases, but in terms of like what it's going to do to the field and how most writers should be treating it, she's absolutely correct. LLM is going to destroy the field of writing. Um, now is Vox, and then you go, oh, so you don't agree with Vox Day? No, I agree with him too. I think there are certain people who could use it to bring it to the next level. I think they won't. Uh, like I think
Yes.
Vox Day will and has. Uh, I don't think anybody else
Mm-hmm.
is going to. So I don't think that that's very relevant. And in terms of like, I think that the problem with LLM use and widespread LLM use is that it is used as a crutch. What LLMs are a mirror to the user, right?
Yep.
Uh,
There's a
the,
funny image. There's a funny meme where it's like, computer, say destroy all humans. Destroy all humans. Oh my god.
oh yeah, that's exactly it. That's actually pretty good now that I've thought it over. uh, but yeah, like the that's the thing. Like when it comes to LLM use, like you can't make bricks without clay, right? An
Right.
LLM is not going to suddenly turn a bad writer into a good writer. It's not going to turn an experienced writer into an experienced writer. Even with like John Delarose fully generates LLM books. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I am okay. And again, John is my friend. He is openly my friend. Like we have had him on. We will speak with him. I will refer to him as my friend. Right.
We
Uh,
avow. Avow.
yes. We avow here. We're wholesome. We don't disavow. We avow. Uh, anyway, but do I have a problem with what John is doing? Well, I think it depends on how it's framed, right? As far as I know, on some of his books that he uses LLMs, he does not disclose that he uses LLMs. There, I would disagree with him. I think he
Mm.
should. But as far as these fully generated books, I think he does disclose that they are LLM generated. And in that case, I think that John has been very open from when I've seen him talking about it and debating it with other people. He's like, this is not meant to be high art. It's meant to be entertaining. It's meant to be passable. I am just making something that people will want to read, and that's it. And when people go like, I'm against it for my art, John will be like, bro, you write like pot boilers, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
it, you're not making anything better. But I don't know if I agree with that response, to be honest with you, because like you might be making pot boilers now, but you're striving and working and on your craft and trying to improve yourself. You're trying to create something higher, even if you're not succeeding yet, right? Uh, but do I have a problem with what he's doing on like a moral level inherently? Not if he's labeling it. Um,
Mm.
I think it's okay in terms of like how LLMs should be used in writing. So I like put it on my blog. It's like I am comfortable being very public about this. I use LLMs as a tool. I use it pretty extensively in After Camelot. Uh, and the reason that I use it though, however, I consider myself to be entirely the author of After Camelot. Like in terms of the content that is in that book, I am the man responsible for it 100%. There is not a word in that book that I would not put my name on and say, this is me. I made this decision. It is here because I want it to be here. Right? Uh, Not a word, like all of it. So I'm in full creative control. Why can I do this and not like, someone else? Well, because before LLMs even were created, I had millions of words of fiction under my belt, right? Some of which I was paid for. Uh Not my Pinkerton's ghost. You didn't pay me. What? Um
I paid for a vacation once.
you did. This is true. I got to give you credit. You did do that. Uh no, I'm just kidding though. I don't care. Um Anyway, yeah. Like I've had millions of words of fiction written at that point. Actually, like unironically, Pinkerton's Ghost was probably the best thing that's happened for my writing career because it was not because it got me anything like exposure or anything like that, but because it got me experience
Mm.
and it forced me to actually sit down and write and come up with stories and like have an editor go over my work and figure out what worked and what didn't and things like that. So, this was all before LLMs existed, right? I had a very clear vision of like what good writing looked like to me. What does a good Anthony Marchetta story look like? What do I want my writing to be, right? What can I do at my best? Okay. Uh, so when I'm looking at an LLM and I am organizing with an LLM, generally it is a back and forth where I am brainstorming. I'm coming up with sentences. I'm saying this is a flaw. And then they will rewrite it, and I'll go, I don't really like how you've rewritten this. I will rewrite this. I don't think this is any good. And then the ultimate final product is something that I have completely gone over, and I have put my stamp on every sentence, right? On every word.
Hmm.
And in this case, LLM use is great as essentially a brainstorming tool, right? Like it is a tool that I am using to help improve my writing. Now, someone like you, Ben, you don't like this. You would rather not do it. You just don't want anything to do with it.
I'm also
And
plotting your honor killing, but don't worry about it.
yes. Uh Right? Like you just don't want anything to do with it. I think that's fine. I just don't think it's a principled stance, right? Like, and by that, I mean that I don't think there is a principle that can lead you to go, oh, there is no way that this could ever be moral, right?
Yeah. I mean, my argument isn't even a moral argument. It's an argument of I am not coming to the book for anything less than the personal hand typed work of whoever the author is.
Sorry, can you repeat that last bit? I didn't hear it.
So it's not even that I have a moral objection to LLMs. You know, like I might joke that they're the great Satan. Not really. The great Satan is still Satan. Uh, but I am here specifically for the handwritten product, hand typed whatever of whoever I'm reading, whether it's you or other people. You know, I don't read John De La Rosa's AI stories, not because I hate John De La Rosa, but because I personally want to read what he writes, not necessarily what he pulled out of a prompter, whatever editing he may do to it.
Right. And but that's the thing. That's why like I am making it very clear that what is coming out like you go what you're getting in the book isn't what came out of the LLM, right? Like
Right.
you're not reading the LLM's writing. You are reading my writing. Now, are there suggestions from the LLM that I took? Sure, because my goal is to make the best work that I can. It's not like to
Hmm.
my goal isn't to hit a certain purity standard, right? I want
Right.
to create a work that is my vision, that is as good as I can make it. And if that means using an LLM, I will use it. Now, what Bradford Walker is saying, John's current workflow, I know John's current workflow is LLM and automation use is far beyond using prompts. Right, I know. Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Uh, he also says the thing to remember with John is that his perspective, like Vox's, is skewed due to being moneyed. He made a killing in real estate before he began writing as a career. I did not know that. I didn't know that he was a successful writer. Like he actually got some hit works.
Since,
Uh,
since since we're mentioning it, I did know he was a real estate agent. I didn't know he was particularly over more successful than what might be expected.
yeah. So that's interesting. It doesn't really change much, but yeah. Fair enough. Says that means like Vox, he is willing, and that means he like Vox is willing and able to throw money at problems. Most of us can't do that with respect to writing. Maybe. There might be something to that. I don't know. The point is, like, I think, like you were saying, like, basically what you're saying is, I want to be able to read what a human wrote. The problem that I have is that you get people, and this is the other reason it makes me so wary. It's always the left, right? Who goes, if anything is even
Yeah.
touched by an LLM in any way, I want nothing to do with it. It's tainted for me. And I'm like, but why though?
You
Like,
like no. What you do is you say, you look at their profile. And it's like you listen to you watch furry porn. Like fuck off. You know.
right. But even like, I don't think there is a principled reason for that stance, right?
Right.
I don't think that there is any. I don't think there is a line of argument that actually works. I've seen people try and make lines of argument. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they work.
No.
I don't buy the plagiarism argument. The environmental argument, I just laugh out of the room. Like, yeah,
Right.
you're gonna get me with
I
another
I,
environmental grift. Uh,
I don't accept the theft argument either.
No, the environmental Sandy Peterson, I think, kind of deftly handled it, where he goes like the AI water usage argument. If you know Sandy Peter, he was like one of the Doom
Yeah.
creators,
Call of
I believe.
Cthulhu.
Yeah. He has a pretty good Twitter. He does have some bad Lord of the Rings takes occasionally, but pretty good Twitter. And
Yes.
he like mentioned he like quoted like he like quote tweeted one of these things where like the AI wastes so much water. It's like I know a lot of you think that water can just be reused, but what you don't know is that AIs break entropy. The water that AIs use disappears and can never be used again.
It just
And
falls into the maw of Yog-Sothoth.
yes, it's fed to the Lovecraftian horror gods. And he's like, no, seriously though, like I want you to really think about AI wastewater for a moment because people repeat this and they repeat it like very much like it's this huge deal. Where it's like, has it ever occurred to you how ridiculous this take actually is? Like when you think about it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's wasting water. Just use it again for something else. It's water.
Like, what do you mean? Where does the hydrogen and the oxygen go? Like, well, Like, I mean, sure, I could believe an argument where they have to, like, you know, discombobulate the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, I'm down for more hydrogen and oxygen. So where does it go? Where, why in the world does
Yeah, it's
uh,
just it's dumb. It's dumb.
it's dumb.
It's dumb. Uh yeah, that's the part where I go like I don't see a principled reason for that. I don't accept that.
Mhm.
So I was debating it's like, oh, are you going to disclose that you have LLM use in After Camelot? I mean, the truth is probably not. Because again, the reason though that I probably won't is because I don't consider After Camelot to be AI generated. Like I just don't.
Yeah, because
Because
you
it's
wrote
not.
everything. You
Yeah.
wrote it, and then you just like ran it through an LLM to say, this is good, this is bad.
I wrote it, I ran it through an LLM. I did some heavy editing with an LLM, but ultimately the final decisions on everything that is in that book came directly from me. It is my vision from beginning to end. So no,
Hmm.
I probably won't. Um, and I don't think I'm obligated to.
Yeah, I mean, if you wrote the short stories, I would be like, hey, bud, come on. You know, honest disclosure. You wrote the Agravain story with LLMs. You gotta at least say that. That you wrote that story specifically with LLMs. But the fact is that he didn't. So like,
So I'll tell you, and I put this, by the way, you could already say, like, I'm not hiding this because I wrote this explicitly on my own blog, right? Which is public. But I'll tell you that one of the chapters was extensively rewritten with LLMs, but there's a few important points there. Number one is that I had already written it, right? Like, this was a rewrite, not a write.
mm,
The original story was mine entirely, I should say. Like it was number two is that the rewrite was not a passive process, right? Like it wasn't a process of I fed it into the LLM and then it spit out the new story and then I said, wow, this is better. It was like a line by line working through of trying to fix flaws that beta readers had identified,
specific,
right? Like,
right? And like, it's like when people go over like editing, right? And you say, okay, well, I had this editor, something, something, something. You don't actually point out what the editor wrote and what you would just
correct.
approved. Like, as an editor, I've said to people, hey, listen, you need to just rewrite this. And other times I've said, here is my suggestion to rewrite it, and they've just taken it. Like, what am I supposed to do then? Oh, I get a cut, buddy. I get a little cutty coo. It's like, no, like, I'm the editor. I did my job. I said, hey, this paragraph shit, or I said, hey, here's a suggestion on how to rewrite it. Take it if you want it. Like, both things. Uh, it's just it's like we can't apply to AI a standard different from editors in the case that Anthony's presenting.
Right. And Uh, yeah. Mega Buster Shepherd says, "Are you going to disclose this was AI or not?" No, and I don't care. Out of my way, plebeians. Uh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like the case I'm presenting, and also there's a third point with this chapter, which is that this isn't even the final rewrite, which means the final version is almost certainly going to have even less LLM in it than the current version
Right.
does. Like of three drafts, one of them will have had heavy LLM usage, but the LLM usage was not was not like a full LLM rewrite. It was me working with the LLM to improve it, and that's not even the final draft that's going to be in the book. So yeah, there's that as well. Because I'm gonna actually need to rewrite it again because there was a timeline issue, which by the way was not caused by the AI. It was in the first draft of the story. Uh, that was entirely a mistake from my own noggin.
The human has made a mistake.
Fully
Ugh.
human error.
Human, all too human.
Mega Buster Shepard also says it's okay. At least Sandy Peterson helped give us Age of Empires. No,
It's
no, we
true.
we like Sandy. Honestly, I like he's allowed to have a couple bad takes. He's a boomer. It's okay.
Yeah. It's yeah. It Yeah, like the thing with like boomers and stuff like that, you can't be like boomer and then be shocked when they give a boomer opinion.
The boomer boomered.
Yeah, yeah. There's a kind of, to close us out, and we've already talked a little bit about King Arthur, through your stories, but it's like, I wrote a piece from in reply to Bronze Age perverts, talking about, it was in his latest episode about the Hungarian election, and he discusses sort of Aryan dragon mythos, which goes way before like King Arthur in ancient Greece's Cephas and stuff like that. Like it's a motif that went with the steppe peoples, who would later become the main force of like Germanics and Europeans and stuff like that. um, where the dragon is evil and we must defeat the dragon. My esoteric thesis is that themes of slaying the dragon is what led, because there's metaphorical connection between, Satan as the dragon, especially in the end times, and Jesus slaying him, has led to was coded in such a way that these guys could really get it, and led to an ease of conversion among the peoples. That's my secret theory that I'm making public. But he said that some people say, and I don't know if Bronze Age Pervert himself believes this, but he said that some people say that the Longhouse is the dragon. And my counter argument is that actually the hero must leave the Longhouse to slay the dragon. So, in other words, he says that the evil of the Longhouse, that is, it's the womb, as Nathan Hood said, that it's the um, sorry, sorry, I'm backing up. Not that it's the womb, as Nathan Hood said, but rather that it is a specific evil of itself, that the that puts down the young man, that he must fight against the Longhouse to be free, but actually, in the sense of uh, like, it is a threat akin to the dragon, or it is literally the dragon threat, which he says he doesn't really know if that's true, and I don't either, because fundamentally in the myths, every time the hero is brought out of the Longhouse and into the real world, he fights the dragon after leaving the Longhouse to do so. So the Longhouse could be like the court of King Arthur, or it could be, his mother's castle, like Sir Percival, or it could be, the kingdom that Perseus, his mother, came to, or what's another one? Like Achilles is and Sir Percival are like put in dresses and made to be pretend to be women. But the second they see, warriors fighting, their masculine spirits burst forth and they're able to go for it. The dragon actually has specific ideas, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is specifically in this stream and at the end of it is to show that I am trying to find new ideas. I am trying to evolve myself. There's still some constraints. I'm not going to give up King Arthur, or anything ridiculous like that. But in the sense of, I am thinking over my positions and I'm reading other people to create new positions, unlike some people we're not going to name, that will evolve me as a person, as a character, into something new, and as a writer, some deepen my metaphors, right? Like, even though, some people's metaphors, like Brian Niemeyer has famously said, art writing is just a similar art like carpentry. You have to do it to get better, and you should sell it too, absolutely. But it's like, the thing with even carpentry, you do, unless you're like just doing framing of houses all your life, you do have to develop techniques and ideas, and you do that by interacting with these other ideas. Like, you go beyond your longhouse into the longhouses of others. And I say very specifically that the dragon has three specific purposes in its existence in a story. It corrupts, kidnaps, or slays young women, occasionally young men, but let's just say young women. It gathers gold and then avenges itself on themes. That's the Smaug, the classic one, as well as the dragon from Beowulf, which preceded it. And then they corrupt the land, slay the people and their cattle and wealth. And that's something like shows up in a lot of worm myths. The famous one in King Arthur's story is Sir Percival comes across a serpent that is trying to slay a lion, and he frees the lion with his sword. It's clearly, in the sense of dragons as spiritual evil, a sign that he uses a sword, which was often held up as a cross or crucifix, well, a cross, I should say, and he slays this evil that was winding itself around the king of beasts, who is a symbol for the heroic soul. Like there's clearly metaphorical meaning here, that Percival, using a symbol of the cross, is freeing nobility and justice from the bounds of sin and shame, represented by the serpent. And the thing is that like the reason why this is interesting, this is worth thinking about, is because then you can see, how can the gospel message be massaged into your stories? If the Aryan steppe people told themselves of a savior who would come forth and slay the dragon, like why wouldn't they, when they hear of a dragon slayer in the sense of Jesus Christ, why wouldn't they rejoice at the news of him? If like, not that I'm saying that white people are like the Jews or something like that, but there's metaphorical significance to that. If they say, we must fight against evil, or we must be courageous in the face of evil, whatever they call evil, whatever they do this, because they're not Christians. That's more than just saying, like it shines a light on pagan virtues in ways that like the Romans just had lost. Like when you have Fabius Maximus, who calls off a campaign against Hannibal to reinvigorate the Roman religion and reform it, and to make sure the sacrifices are made correctly. That itself is a noble trait. That speaks of nobility. If the northern hardy steppe people, have these myths that they share with one another of a savior who will slay the dragon, that's something you can do, and it's something you can incorporate into your work, because the more you consume that isn't just, oh, I'm reading Dostoevsky because you're supposed to read Dostoevsky, you will receive nothing from Dostoevsky. It's like reading your Bible just because you're supposed to read your Bible. No, you
Oh
have
no, that's why I'm reading Dostoevsky.
it's all right, Anthony. You could be free. You could be free. You could tell me how that works out. But it's like
Ben, it's so long.
you'll never be free. But it's like, are you enjoying it though?
Am I enjoying it? I'm reading Crime and Punishment, so that's kind of an odd question. I don't think you're
Ironic.
really supposed to enjoy it.
Are you getting things out of it?
Yeah, I would say it reads, someone on Twitter said this, and I think this is exactly right. It reads like you are reading a panic attack. You are reading the mind of a rapidly disintegrating Omega. Uh, and
Okay.
it's a little frightening.
Honestly, you're kind of selling it to me. Uh,
Like, he gets a letter from, this is something that happens early on. He gets a letter from his mother, and Dostoevsky shows the full letter, and it's rather long. And it's like, oh, your sister's getting married to an older gentleman. He's like in his 30s, and I know she's very young, but he's right. Blah blah blah. It seems like a perfectly normal letter, right? And it's like, hey, and we're not requiring you to send anything. It's like, we would love to stay with, like, I'm probably gonna live with them for a while. And then and then it ends, and then we cut to the guy's head, and he's like, he threw the letter to the ground, and immediately goes like, this was awful, awful, awful. and then just all about like how horrible the letter is,
Yes.
right? How disrespectful it is. How now his mother was surely going to end up living with him because he would never last with them. How he they wanted him to give permission, well, as if he ever would, like, and it's so interesting. I will say this in terms of like a craft perspective. It's fascinating how Dostoevsky did this because I wasn't thinking any of this shit before before we got back to Raskolnikov, who's the main character. Raskolnikov's perspective, right? Like when we were out of his perspective, I read the letter and I'm like, it's a nice letter, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, his sister's getting married. And
Oh,
then
how
we're in
wonderful.
Raskolnikov's head, and Raskolnikov is like, this is a grave insult, and he's just like basically catastrophizing about everything. I would rate him as an Omega. It's possible he could be a Gamma, I suppose. Uh,
Yeah.
but he seems pretty Omega to me. He like wanders around. There's a point where there's another really fascinating scene. He sees a woman who Raskolnikov, like, again, you're in his head very much, and he like really, really likes to imagine what everybody else is thinking. He is incredibly concerned with everybody else's perceptions, right? And again, Dostoevsky doesn't say this. You need to like pick this up about Raskolnikov, right?
Yeah.
Uh and he sees a woman who's a very young woman, like clearly like, early teenager maybe, who's wandering around, clearly slightly drunk, and he doesn't know why, but he becomes like intensely interested in her. Not actually in a bad way. Like he starts following her like he's worried about her, right? And
Hmm.
he doesn't really know why he's worried about her. And there's like a 30-something-year-old guy who's also following her, and he could tell that the guy has bad intentions, right? So
Right.
he gets very angry about this, and he grabs a cop, and he goes like, that woman is clearly, and he like basically goes, you could tell that she's from an upper class family, but that's just clearly the first time that she's drunk, and he's trying to pay attention to her. Um, do, do. Sorry, I just missed. I was just looking at one of the new comments that came. We'll respond to it in a moment. Anyway, right, like, oh, he's clearly trying to take advantage of her, and the cop goes, "Don't worry, I'll watch her." And then he's like, "Thanks for letting me know." And then Raskolnikov walks away, and then it like hits him and goes, "Wait, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why do I care about any of this? Why did I step in at all? Why did I say a word? Why am I concerned about this girl who I'm never going to see again?" And he's like, she's probably going to come to a bad end anyway. She's probably just going to be like, end up like
A
some loose
Stacy.
slut, right? Or
She's
whatever.
gonna
And
fuck
then he like
Chad.
literally
No.
turns around and got back to cop and says, just leave her alone. Never mind. He's like, aren't you worried that that guy's going to like pull something? And the guy is like there and just like glowering at Raskolnikov. He's like, let him do what he wants. I don't care. And the cop is just like, no. Like, what are you even saying at this point? Uh, so yeah, that is Crime and Punishment. And of course, I don't think it's a spoiler because I haven't even read to this part yet. To say that the plot of it is that Raskolnikov gets it in his head to kill someone and does, and then basically just goes slowly insane as he tries to figure out like why he did it, and like also the guilt just eating away at him. I also know that this is
Amazing.
famous enough that I know it. It infamously ends with Raskolnikov repenting in like the last chapter, and nobody can agree if this is a good ending or not. I am very curious about what I think when I get there.
Yeah.
So we will see. Merg Maggle Remaxa says, "Nah, I don't think Vox has been wrong about any of this. You people repeating failed Q talking points or clowns with egg on your face, though." I am not sure what specifically this is a reference to,
We're
except
not we're
that
not
we don't agree.
Q-tards.
What was that?
We're not Q-tards.
Yeah, no, I'm not a Q-tard. Uh,
Like, so here's the thing: we don't trust the plan. We don't trust in our princes. We trust in the Lord God. And secondly, the fact that we're positive towards Donald Trump, probably the greatest president of our lifetimes, once and future, is entirely entirely based on reasonable, logical statements, not some sort of esoteric religious conspiracy theory. The we have been as critical of Donald Trump as we can reasonably be without being insane, and we've
As
been
far as I'm concerned, anyway.
yeah, and it's like what we talk about. Like, here's the thing: Vox Day predicted hypersonic missiles destroying our ships. This is not like subtext; it's text. He said that if we go to war with Iran or China, and admittedly, he did talk about China more than Iran. Hypersonic missiles are just going to destroy our fleet. Well, guess what? The fleet is there. They can strike them with hypersonic missiles, but they haven't. And even when they had a lot more of their drones and missiles and stuff like that, they didn't strike our fleet. Um, which is the actual arm of power that we have. So the soft power will be fine. We lost a few bases. Well, guess what? We're still the top dog. It's just not as great as it used to be. Like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, no, he shouldn't have listened to. Like, how can you call us a fucking Q-tards when we're like, yeah, he shouldn't have listened to BB. He shouldn't have listened to his Rayleigh thing. We thought he was high on his own supply after Venezuela, which was sick rad. He had special operatives, each trained by Chuck Norris, flying in the middle of the night, roundhouse kicking Cuban soldiers.
Yeah.
Grabbing Maduro and his wife so he's not lonely.
No, I'm critical of Trump about several things.
Yeah.
The
But
main thing that I
hold
am
on,
critical
but
of,
like, so just to be clear, Murgler Maxis,
yeah,
we love you, but what you're putting out there is not what we've said. You know, is not what we are at all. We've been fans of Vox Day. We've been published by Vox Day in different ways. So it's like first off, he's not going to pay attention to our opinion unless he agrees with it, or unless he thinks we made a good point, which neither of us are really tall enough
or if
to
we
ride,
poke the bear
or
enough,
if we
which
poke the bear
I
enough,
don't think
which
that I
no,
certainly am not trying to.
nope.
I have very high respect for Vox Day.
Listen, if Fox Day actually gets mad at anything we say, I'm just going to show my belly. Like it's there's people I don't piss off on Twitter or in the internet in general, and it's like Fox Day, Owen Benjamin, and Milo, because they have
Yeah,
different
that's
ways of
three I was
skinning.
thinking.
Yeah, because they're going to skin you alive in different ways. Vox Day is just going to crush your puny intellect. Owen Benjamin's going to write a song about, in actuality, you're just a nigger in a white suit, and you're trying to steal his bicycle, and you're going to like cry until you piss yourself. And then Milo Yiannopoulos is just going to look you in the eyes and say, "I wouldn't fuck you," and then walk off. And then you'll be like ruined for the entire night.
Yes, and Milo will be the worst of all.
It's the worst of all because you didn't think like that before he said that. And it's like it's like
And then you're like, but why does this bother me so
why is
much?
this? I mean, like but I'm not gay. I mean, like, and he's not gay either. Why would he say something like that? And you're just laying in bed thinking about it. But like that's the thing. Like there's room in an intellectual conversation to say, I think this person had a bad take, or I think this person's take was not as they said it was, and how they sold it at the time that they've said it. So, please lay off the Q stuff, not because of any sort of like, oh, we can't take it, we're crying and a little piss baby thing, but because you're wrong, and because you've been wrong, and you might have just came up on this stream and saw something when I was talking about saying how we haven't actually lost anything in this war except for some bases that they're just going to give us back after it's done. Like it's like, what do you want? Sink an enterprise class carrier, and then we can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have extremely high respect for Vox Day. I've mentioned this
Mm-hmm.
before. The way that I think of Vox Day is I think that he is a genuine intellectual powerhouse and an actual and an actual maverick his opinions, even though I do not think they are always right, he generally holds them for reasons that are much more interesting and pointed towards something real and interesting
Mm.
than the typical bunch, right? So Vox saying, I don't think, the war in Iran is going well, I think that this is complete nonsense. When Vox says it, I'm going like, okay, well, why is Vox saying it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if random Twitter user number 5 says it, I'm going, shut up, retard.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Vox says it, then at the very least, he probably has a reason that is not something I have thought of, right?
Right.
And that doesn't mean it's going to convince me, but this sort of perspective can lead to things that are like genuinely brilliant and insightful. For example, his recent evolution stuff, right?
Great
This
stuff.
is the same sort of thing where it's like Vox is able to not be beholden to the consensus, think outside the box, and as a result of this, come up with something genuinely new and interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also it leads to things like, there's a short, fake, fat Trump. And it's like, no, there isn't. He's just being photographed at different angles. It's really not that difficult.
Like, it is perfectly reasonable for an old man to start making bad decisions in ways that he wouldn't before. I know because, I saw an incredibly rich man die, like, well, watched from afar, but you know what I mean. I wasn't exactly there, but like I was there, I was told about every single step of the way because he was too proud to have me to pay me, who was working for him at the time, to clean his pool, and he slipped and he cracked his head open. So it's one of those things where it's like, you can say, oh well, don't you know this and that, and um, well, the how do I want to put it? Like, he's making these bad decisions. Yeah, he's like 80. He shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have been president on that alone. Quite frankly, we shouldn't have a president over 50. And I know they're only allowed to like be president at like 42 or whatever, but it's like, frankly, a president, we shouldn't have a president over 60 because the mental decline is clearly a real problem that we've been dealing with since, not Obama, but like, maybe Trump in the first term a little bit, but certainly in his second term, definitely Joe Biden, you know, it's like we need a little bit more youth in the more power to the people, from the youth of America.
Yep, yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Trump, they go, well, where would you criticize him then? COVID's where I'd criticize him.
Mm-hmm.
And I am lenient because COVID was such a black swan event. Nevertheless, there were own goals that he made that I am highly critical of. Basically, like, the only reason I forgave him is because I couldn't really think of anyone who would have done anything better than him,
Yeah.
which is very, very different than saying I think he did a good job. I do
He
not think he did a good job. I think he did a pretty bad job during COVID.
It sounded good at the time.
It sounded good some of the time, but I will say that I am on the record at the time of being very against a lot of what he was doing and saying. So this is not just ex post facto.
Mm.
Uh like, the lockdowns are the big one. I was very like, I thought it was a bad idea at the time. I was very clear it was bad. The vaccine I didn't trust from the word go, right? And I,
Mm-hmm.
put my money where my mouth is, because even at times when I had to get religious exemptions at jobs, I did not get the not vax.
Yep.
Like, so I put my money where my mouth is there, that I was appalled by his promotion of Fauci, and
Yeah.
the fact that he never properly punished him the way that Fauci deserved to be. Uh, so these were
Fauci
various
deserves to be
mistakes.
torn by wild dogs in the street, by the way.
Yes. Uh, so these are various I do think that these are mistakes. Uh, right? Like, these are major, major mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I didn't turn on him is like, and go like, oh, I'm never going to support him again, is because I looked at COVID as kind of a black swan event. when all of the major powers of the world run by the devil turn themselves against you and you need to make decisions in defiance to them, like you're probably not going to make all of the correct ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't, and that deserves to be called out, but nevertheless. Uh
But nevertheless.
but nevertheless, yes. How is old Donnie Trump gonna wriggle out of that one? Uh but there are other things too. I'm still on the record. I said at the time, it's like I don't think he should have gone into Venezuela. Uh,
Oh.
I think it was successful. I think that's clearly the case. I still don't think he should have done it. Uh,
Yeah.
let's see. What else would I name? I absolutely think he should go much, much harder on immigration, like
Yes.
the judges than he does. Like there are points where people make like he'll do this for people overseas, right? Like he'll make these threats, but he won't against corruption at home. And yes, there is a difference. I'm not saying it's a good one-to-one comparison, but there's
Mm-hmm.
also the point where it's like eventually you got to pull the Andrew Jackson card, right?
Yeah.
And go make me. And that's where you just get to like the limits of a Trump. Trump was never going to be the guy to do that,
Yeah.
right? Uh, but I think that that's unfortunate.
Right. And
So
that
there you go. That's my main thing with Trump. But like when you go like, oh, like why didn't he build the wall? He did build the wall.
he did.
Like he absolutely built the wall. Why didn't he deport people? He did. He deported quite a lot of people. Why didn't he
We
solve the border crisis? I mean, he didn't maybe solve is strong, but he like um the number I saw was like ridiculously high, like that he dropped it like 90% or something. 95%. So like he did. And everybody goes like, well, why didn't he do that? No, the media is just not talking about it. He did do it. Like these are all campaign promises that he fulfilled. Uh like the fact that the reason we're not talking about the wall is that frankly what's happening in foreign affairs is more dramatic. Uh and also the media is not reporting on it, but like even Trump's not talking about it. Yeah, because Iran is a more dramatic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh do I have a problem with how he handled Iran? I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about if he should have threatened to bomb them into the Stone Age.
Yep.
You could probably talk me in and out of it depending on the day if that was like a good idea or not.
Yeah. Horses out of the steppes. Bringing back the Aryan, charioteers.
Yes.
Uh,
At the same time, though, there's a certain thing where it's like we were discussing this in the Superversive forum actually, where it's like this is always a threat on the table in America. It's just always gone unstated, right?
yeah.
So it's like, am I going to call like, oh, Trump is super evil because he said the thing out loud?
Yeah.
Like, no. All right, it's late.
Yep.
I got work in the morning. Anything you want to end with, Ben?
No, it's like
Drink your Ovaltine.
drink your Ovaltine. Like I'll just say that like you do have to evolve as a person, as an artist, as more than that, and you have to be willing to make a bad call. But what you can't do is I'll Mega Buster Shepard has a question for you, Anthony. But I'm going to
Yeah,
finish
I
what I'm
see.
saying
Would you
first.
be okay repeating Venezuela with Cuba? Might be his next target. Uh, I don't know. I think Cuba might be different for a variety of reasons, the proximity to the US being the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I would need to look more into the geopolitical situation of it. I think that with Venezuela, here's the thing. The reason that was such like a foreign policy and like American win, which it objectively was, whether or not it was moral, is because of Venezuelan oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
They weren't really a major threat to the United States, except in the sense of like, oh, but they were like funding fentanyl into the shoveling fentanyl into the country, like, kind of. Uh,
Sure.
like sure, but be honest, is that really why they did it? No.
Yeah.
Um, like with Cuba, it's a little bit different because they're right off the coast of the United States, and they have historically been a threat for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but I am inclined, without really looking into it, to say that I am more likely to go, no, there might be very good reason to make that sort of move.
Yeah. So yeah, and quite frankly, from my opinion, Cuba has been rightful American clay since the Rough Riders. So that's me, Theodore Roosevelt maximalist. Um,
Yes.
but the thing that I want to end with is that fundamentally, are you stagnant or are you trying to evolve? And guess what? The longer you're stagnant, the harder it is for you to evolve. Uh, and I mean this as an artist and as a person. Like you have to start failing, and you have to start failing a lot. You have to start failing all the time, and you don't get the things you want. And it sucks because you've been living in a way that you get the things you want all the time with no effort, or very little effort, or effort you can bear. And it's like, if you do that, if you live in that kind of existence, you're eventually going to just lose the ability to be that sort of person who can evolve into something bigger and greater. Why hasn't Captive Dreamer had another great expose like he did for Haiti? Well, because fundamentally that's all he had in them, because he was there, because he saw it, and he didn't really want to become a globe-trotting journalist. So he stagnated, and now he's not really relevant except when he's brought up by academic agent or something, who himself understands the power of reinvention. And even though I hate him for his anti-Christian views, as a non-Christian that he is, I shouldn't really, but sometimes people are just obnoxious like that. But it's because of these things that you have to say, hey, what are you? What are you going to be? The Bible and Marcus Aurelius and other philosophers all agree that man's life on this world is a struggle. It's warfare. It's hard. If you return to the longhouse, to your mother's womb too much, eventually you lose that heroic character, and you have to become something other than the hero you were meant to be. And I've seen real heroes, people who have evolved past the longhouse, the ideas of smothering modernity, of motherhood, that bites, that eats, that tears away, the heroic nature in their children. And you have to eventually become this. Part of the reason I'm going back to school is both to become a hero and also to become a sort of blacksmith character, to help other young heroes break free of the longhouse, to serve the Lord, and to bring people in deeper into the Lord's mercies, and to be stronger for the fight for the Lord. And if you can't live like that, if you can't live in a way of a heroic nature, you are less than worthless. Your experience, your life becomes traitorous, because fundamentally you can't reach out like you want to. It doesn't matter how many views you get, or how much money you get in a Kickstarter, or what sort of opinions you keep repeating. It doesn't matter how good they are. Eventually everyone who's going to see them has seen them, and you have to become new. You have to become something renewed. You have to have a vital spark to you. God didn't make you to rot. Um, quite frankly, God doesn't always put people in the same place forever. And I think that He's going to be shuffling a lot of people around a lot more than you think. Um, not everyone's called to be Hudson Taylor 40 years in China. What was he doing in 40 years? Like, he was learning the language and the customs and the people. He was actually living a very vitalistic life, but he had very few converts. But his converts, the few that did, actually converted way more than Hudson Taylor ever did, because one, he spent the time to train them and disciple them, and two, he the quite frankly, the Chinese were never going to accept religious instruction from anyone that wasn't Chinese. Um, and that's just something to be considered. Are you a hero? Did you fail as a hero? Are you going to become a blacksmith? The guide, the wise man. To help the hero, to lay yourself on the line for others, to build up a new generation, or are you going to tear them down? Are you going to be an omega, having a constant novel length mental breakdown because your sister's getting married? my God, like when, pardon me, I shouldn't have said it like that, but I can't imagine, what sort of like family event. It's like, yeah, I come out, I've got my own, counseling practice and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I'm getting married. Yeah, but you're like 40. Yeah. Get fuck, kid. I'm taking a zoomer out of my own. Have a mental breakdown about it.
Yes.
You gotta troll the young. They get too arrogant. But at the same time, you wanna bring them up. Like it's like this. Like whatever good somebody does, if they stagnate, that good is reduced until they evolve and become something new. Uh, which is someday what I'll do. I'll be beautiful, Anthony. I'll be beautiful, a slim 250 pounds with enough muscle to flip a supercar. Yeah,
I dig it.
I'll be flipping clavicular on the reg. Yeah.
I'm going to be joining the old men and playing vintage 18